This game was provided to Crits Happen by Dragon's Lair Comics and Fantasy. Check them out online at dlair.net for all your comic and gaming needs.
Hi everyone, it's Tox from critshappen.com. Thanks for watching and welcome back. Today we have a critical review of a game called Legends of Andor. This is from Fantasy Flight Games and Michael Menzel is the designer. A lot of you may be familiar with Michael as he's done a lot of artwork for a lot of other games, including the artwork for this, as you'll see when we show you the gameplay, the beautiful double-sided board that's involved with this game. But this is his first full design of both art and rules. It is a cooperative game. It says it's for 2 to 4 players, although as in most cooperative games go, you could play this solo if you wanted to. But it is for anywhere between 2 and 4 adventurers, and you're going to pick out from a wizard, a warrior, an archer, and a dwarf, and either a male or a female, the boards have 2 different sides to them, as to who's going to be part of these adventures. And Legends of Andor is really unlike any game you've played before. It says it's for ages 14 and up, and I would tend to agree with that. It says it's about 60 to 90 minutes to play, although the first time you play an adventure it will probably take a little longer than that because you learn this game as you go. And it goes like that for each adventure. So the way that Legends of Andor is set up is it's driven primarily by these oversized cards. And they are in sets of adventures. This game comes with 6 different adventures. There is an adventure online that I think is still only in German, but may be able to be translated, that was fan created. And then of course, it does leave you some flexibility to create your own. It's an interesting system and an interesting setup as to how all of this comes together. But the first thing you'll notice by everything out in front of me is there is a lot to this game. Now, the beauty or the part of Legends of Andor that makes giving it a critical review really hard is I can't explain too much without giving away what I really feel is the biggest part of the game, which is unlocking the mysteries of the Legends of Andor. So each adventure, or as the game calls it, each legend, is going to take place and develop as you play the game. When you start the game, you're actually given a rule book that is only 4 pages long, and that's it. That tells you how to set up the game with the base adventure, it tells you how to start the game for the base adventure, and then you begin to learn the rules from the text that's on these cards and the rules that are on these cards as you play through. Now, as you develop through, there is a reference sheet that you can look at to go back without having to check these cards if you forget a rule. So technically, if you wanted to, you could just read the reference sheet and know what every single thing means. But part of the fun of this game is it's really like playing a book in that you're going to move around and do different things in Legends, and you're going to discover what each of the items do. Whether it's farmer tokens, jewels, the merchants, the monsters, this big flying dragon, all these different things are going to come to you as a player of the game as unknown pieces of information, and you're going to learn them throughout the stories as the story develops, which is a really interesting and unique component. So what I thought I would do for a critical review is sit down and show you the very first turn of the first legend, so you can get an idea of what actually is set up and how things work to begin the game. This will give you just enough to give you a little bit of a glimpse, but not too much to spoil anything for anyone who's really interested in all of the dramatic legends inside of Andor. So come with me. Pick your hero, grab your dice, grab all your chits, and let's roll some crits in the Legends of Andor. So this is the way the introductory legend starts for the Legends of Andor. The first thing you'll notice is our heroes are spaced out. We have our archer at the top of the map. our wizard at the right of the map, and we have our warrior at the left of the map. Each legend is going to start differently, and each legend is going to give you different starting spaces on the map. You'll notice that each map space is drawn differently, has a different region and a different number. Those numbers will correspond to your starting places as told by the setup of the legend, and they'll also be different for where the monsters will come out when different events happen. The other thing to note about the board, which is a really interesting way of kind of an engine being built into this, is the top area up here shows a sunrise box, and then it shows 7 boxes for each hour of the day that a hero can take actions. Moving, visiting merchants, visiting wells, fighting, all the different actions you're going to take throughout the game are going to force you to move a token representing your hero up further in the day. When you reach the 7th hour, you either go back to the sunrise box and end your day, or you can push into the 8th, 9th, and 10th hour of the day. If you do that though, you'll notice these are orange, and you're going to lose willpower by doing that. What is willpower? Great question. We'll show you that in a second. The other last thing to note about the sunrise box is there's an icon bar across the bottom, and it will tell you everything you do from left to right in terms of beginning your day. It's going to be a combination of drawing cards from an event stack, which monsters are going to activate and in which order, refreshing wells, and most importantly, moving your time pawn up the track on the right. You'll notice that there are letters and boxes all the way from A to N on the right hand side. Each legend, as we mentioned earlier, is going to use these oversized legend cards. Some of them will have letters on them that are going to correspond to different points in this legend track. When you hit those, you're going to read those cards and you're going to deal with what happens on them. Some of them may be monsters coming on the board, everything from a small little gore all the way up to a giant dragon. Some of them may be events that different people will come onto the board and help you. But it's all going to progress the story further and further forward. Now, the other thing after you've done setup, it should be noted that these tokens, these blue tokens, are only for this first introductory legend. Once that's done, there's specific tokens that aren't as big and clunky. These are a little bit bigger because they actually have the rules written on them, and you're going to learn how to interact with them when you land on those spaces. Now, each hero is going to get a hero board, and each hero is different. Some are going to have abilities that will interact with things on the board, and some are going to have abilities that interact with the dice when they roll combat. And combat is really, really simple. You basically are going to roll the number of dice equal to the row of your current willpower. Each hero starts the game with 7 willpower. They also start the game with 1 strength. Now, let's take a look at Thorn, who's probably the best example to use. If Thorn has between 0 and 6 willpower, he rolls 2 blue dice, and he will take the highest value. If he has between 7 and 13, he will roll 3 blue dice and take the highest value. And if he has between 14 and 20, he'll roll 4 blue dice and take the highest value. There are a lot of different things in the game that makes each hero totally different in terms of playing them. For example, the wizard has 1 die in each willpower row, but they have the ability to flip it to the opposite side. So the wizard could take a 1 and flip it to a 6, or 2 and flip it to a 5, or 3 and flip it to the 4, or vice versa if you wanted to get a lower roll for any reason. The warriors just allow you to throw more dice, but they're going to interact on the board. The dwarf is the same way. The archer is probably the most interesting to me because the archer will let you roll 3, 4, or 5 dice depending on how much willpower you have, but you roll each die one at a time, and you have to choose when to stop taking the last result. So do you keep the 5 you just rolled, knowing you have 1 more die to roll, and try and get a 6? Or do you hold off and take the 5 and figure out how you're going to move on from there? So there's a lot of gambling going on. Now, the monsters in the game are very generic, aside from the dragon, who is very unique. But the monsters have their own board that is represented on the actual game board itself. Monster combat is interesting because monsters don't engage you. You engage monsters. And it's as simple as this. When you're fighting a monster, you take the strength tracker and match it up to their icon on the board. You then take a disc token and match it up to the willpower of the monster's picture. So for a Gore, they would have 4. Let's say a Gore was in the same space as our warrior Thorn, and he wanted to combat him. The first thing he would have to do is he would have to spend one of his time marker days, or time marker boxes, to go into combat with the Gore. If we have 7 willpower, we're going to roll 3 blue dice. So we'll take our 3, we take our highest result, and in this case it's a 5. So we're going to take that 5 and add it to our strength, which is 1, which gives us a total of 6. Now the Gore rolls 2 red dice, which you'll see here on the tracker. We'll roll 2 red dice, and his highest is a 3. So he will take the 3 plus his 2 strength for 5, versus the 5 plus the 1 strength of 6, so Thorn would win that combat. He wins it by 1, so we move the Gore's willpower down 1. To continue fighting, Thorn could move his tracker 1 step forward on the time track along the top and continue fighting. If he chose to run away because he had taken too much damage, the downside is the Gore goes back to full strength. So there's some gambles early on in fighting. Do you take the time to actually fight? Do you go get more powerful and then go fight? Or are you going to be wasting your time fighting so much you're not going to complete your objectives? So there's a lot of different things that are going to happen. Now, for this one, we're going to start the game by reading the first legend card. In this case, it's A1. Some of them will have A1 and A2, or C1 and C2. Some of them will just have the letter A, B, C, and so on. If it's a 1 and 2, you generally read them at the same time. So this first one tells us that the king's ambassadors can hardly believe their eyes. Prince Thorald has finally returned and has managed to gather the bravest heroes of in all of Andor. And during the first part of this introductory legend, the heroes must complete 4 objectives, and it lists the objectives very clearly. We must have 1 hero uncover 1 fog token, we must have 1 hero buy 1 strength from the merchant, and we must have 2 gold to do that. We must empty a well, and we must have a hero enter the castle. And you'll notice at the bottom it says continue reading on legend card A2. If it doesn't say anything down here about continue reading, don't continue reading. So in this case we flip over A2 and it will tell us some more rules around how heroes and monsters will move, what our options are, and it will also give us the requirement that each hero has only 7 hours of time. Therefore the party needs to work together as a team to discuss who is best to fulfill the objective. And the first part of this introductory legend ends when either one hero ends his movement in space 0, which is the castle, or all heroes have moved their time markers to space 7. So yes, for this first introductory set of objectives, you have 1 day from 1 to 7 to complete all of that. And you're spread out. So it already gives you a puzzle, and it already gives you things you have to think about. From here, the game is going to continue on. And it will tell you in this little kind of bolded area here, or this bracketed area, the party must complete all 4 objectives in a single day or they lose. After completing all of the objectives, the party has successfully finished the first part of the introductory legend. Continue reading step 4 on page 2 of the Quick Start booklet, which will then start to tell you when to dig into the other legend cards and when you move your track along. Now, one of the more interesting things about this game is that while time moves forward along the track at the top, the legend moves forward on this track along the right. If the legend gets to end, the legend is going to end, and you must complete the objectives by that time. The challenge is that whenever you kill something, whenever you kill a monster, this pawn is going to move up the track. So you have to balance what and when you kill against what and how you have to complete your objectives to make sure that you do everything you need to do by the time the legend track reaches end, but you don't get overrun. Because in a majority of these games, what's going to be happening is all of these monsters are going to be rushing towards this castle. And you'll notice these shields. What these shields mean is that if a monster ends its turn on the castle, they're going to go on one of these shields. In a 2-player game, you can have 3 monsters. In a 3-player game, you can have 2. And in a 4-player game, you can have 1. Once these shields are filled up and another monster ends its turn and enters a castle, you're going to have your castle overrun and you're going to lose the game. So at times, it can almost feel as though it's a tower defense type game. There's little arrows on the board that will show you how each monster moves, and as part of the legends and the introductory legend, you're going to learn the rules for how they move. When you finish that first 4-page booklet, you only know the basics. And from there, each legend gets deeper, each legend gets more adventurous, each legend gets more dangerous, and more of the components that are part of this game pull you in to the world of Andor. So that's Legends of Andor. Or actually it isn't. There's so much more I need to tell you about Legends of Andor, and I just can't, because it would give away the real crux of the game, which is learning it. It's a story. It's a puzzle game. It's not a role-playing game. This isn't Descent. It's not kill, gear up, get more stuff, and kill more. It is a puzzle game where it's laid out, you have objectives, you have bad guys, and you have to balance your decisions and your time to use on how you're going to complete things as the legend keeps progressing. The way they teach you the game is really the beauty of the game. And I really would love to get into all the different things that help me make my opinion on this game, but I can't because it would really spoil it for people who really want to learn how this game is put together. At the end of the day, it is a hit of a game. The components are really good. The artwork is beautiful, the cardboard used is a little average, and they are somewhat basic. Probably one of the biggest challenges is that by the time you get to Legend 5, you're seeing the same monsters over and over again, which gets a little old. Hopefully in the future, more expansion packs could help with that, but we'll see how that progresses. The combat system from a gameplay perspective is very basic, but that's only a portion of it. There's a lot more in terms of movement strategies, in terms of fog, in terms of a lot of things I can't tell you about, which is frustrating. But the combat system, the movement system, the puzzle system is pretty straightforward. The challenge I have with the puzzle system is this. You get a setup, you have objectives, you have bad things happening. You balance your time and your actions to complete those. Once you know how to beat that, there's not much of a challenge with the legends. So there's not a lot of replayability in the legends themselves. It's going to take you some time. While there's only 5 legends, I know I said 6, there's actually 5. The 6th one is something that you can write on your own. But while there's 5 legends that come with the box, you're actually going to end up in a position of wanting to replay them with different amounts of heroes to see the challenge inherent in the legend. I don't want to give too much away, again this is frustrating, this is kind of hard to review this game this way, is that the legend does not scale very well depending on the number of heroes in the game. And I don't want to say any more, I'm just going to leave it at that. Experience-wise, it's a lot of fun. It's a co-op game where you're doing a lot of work with each other to figure out who's best to go. The downside to it is there's more figuring out than actual action. And that just kind of pulled a little bit away. There's times where we spent almost a half hour trying to figure out, should the wizard do this or should the archer do this? Because if the wizard does this, then the dwarf can do this and the warrior can do this. But if the archer does this, then the wizard can do this and the warrior can do this. But if the archer roll, there's so many different options that it kind of takes too long to make up your mind than actually do what it is you need to do, which can take a little bit away from it. I really wish there was more I could tell you, but I really can't. There is one thing that I will give away that I thought was really kind of new and interesting. This game feels kind of generic. If you could imagine every fantasy type of thing you could think of, it's kind of in this game. But one of the things that was new that I hadn't seen in another game was actually kind of cool, is that one of the items you can buy from a merchant is a falcon. And what the falcon lets you do is no matter where you are on the board, you can send an item to a teammate. So if I'm over here as a warrior and I have something that will help the archer, I can buy a falcon and send it to him without having to run across the board and get into the same space and trade. That was kind of cool. And that's really minimal. There's so much more. There's a lot more. And really the fun in this game is learning this game. Moving from legend to legend, understanding the rules as they're presented to you is really where you're going to get the most enjoyment out of this game. It's something that when you're done, you're going to wish there was more expansions. At the moment, there's no more expansions other than a fan-written one that's online that I believe still only in German. But there's a lot of opportunity with this game. There could be a lot more to it. It's just a matter of what Fantasy Flight and Michael Manziel has in store for plans for this. But it is a great base system and something that is even flexible enough that because they give you a blank legend, you could write your own legends and write your own puzzles. It's different. It's a different type of game than I've really ever seen. And it takes a little bit to get over the thought process and the fact that this isn't go kill, gear up, go kill. It is a puzzle game. A lot of people, when I've introduced this game to them, have a hard time with that. Because the look, the feel, the things which I can't tell you about that you get into make you feel like it's a kill, gear up, and kill more. But it really is a puzzle game. At the end of the day, Legends of Andor gets a hit from Crits Happen. I know you're probably sitting there saying, tell me more. I wish I could. If you'd like to know more, feel free to reach out to us. Send us an email. Go to critshappen.com and there's a contact tab. You can feel free to shoot us a note. There's just a lot of things that I don't want to give away for anyone who's willing to invest in the game and play the game and have it progress out for them. But in the meantime, we hope you enjoyed this review. It's been a lot of fun playing this game, and we hope that you enjoy playing it if you delve into it as well. Let us know your comments, though. Feel free to leave your comments here in the YouTube channel. You can, of course, find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Google Plus by searching Crits Happen. And you can find us at our homepage at critshappen.com. But until we see you next time, we hope that you enjoy writing your own legend and learning about all the others inside of Andor. Thanks so much for watching. Keep rolling those dice, and we hope they're all crits.
Thank you again to Dragon's Lair for providing us a copy of this game to review for you. Check them out online at dlair.net for all your comic and gaming needs.